ahead and just start. So it's a brief presentation just about general exercise and balance guidelines, just making sure that we're all staying safe. The more that we're I guess that would help if I share my screen before I just flip to it. All right, can you ladies see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so this is just general balance and exercise safety. So our general COVID guidelines, I just pulled these directly from the CDC website, making sure that we're all up to date, because that's what Kendal's trying to follow is the CDC guidelines. And also, I know Ohio Department of Health is also trying to follow the CDC guidelines, so we're all working with the same thing. So the last update was that I found on the CDC website was on the 2nd of this month. So kind of saying now that everyone's starting to get vaccinated, fully vaccinated people can resume domestic travel without being tested before or after their trips. Also saying you don't need to get tested to leave the United States unless wherever you're traveling to is requiring that test, but not necessarily saying you have to quarantine when you come back. So this is coming directly from the CDC website, kind of saying what you can do now that you've been vaccinated. So they're saying it's safe to visit with fully vaccinated people, regardless of age, in your home without a mask, or as long as you're comfortable without a mask. Just trying to say you should be safe without a mask with one household person who is unvaccinated or not at risk for illness or contracting the COVID vaccination. They're saying you should generally be safe. CDC saying you don't have to have a pre-test or post-test after travel, and you don't have to quarantine unless that destination requires it. They are saying still moderate your indoor visits without a mask with people who are at increased risk for COVID-19, and also still moderate your gatherings of medium or large people. But so what they're saying now that what we can do is still keep our precautions, still keep our physical distancing, making sure that we're still maintaining those social distancing practices. They're still saying wear your mask and other preventative measures while you're in the presence of an unvaccinated person or someone who has household members or at increased risk for COVID-19. And just avoid your large groups. Get testing if you are experiencing symptoms, regardless if you have been vaccinated or not, because there are different strains and sometimes that vaccine may not be as effective for you. So always make sure that if you are experiencing a symptom, go ahead and get a test, and then also follow your CDC guidelines. So coming to exercise, I use the ACSM because that is what I am certified through. ACSM is American College of Sports Medicine. These guidelines are actually throughout the United States with various different exercise organizations. So it's kind of saying, okay, you want to exercise. These are our general recommendations to make sure that you're keeping your strength, keeping your endurance, and not overdoing it. So regardless of age, whether you're 15 or 95 or 65, it doesn't really matter. They're saying, I'll go kind of column by column. If you're doing aerobic exercise, we recommend roughly 5 days of exercise or about 30 to 60 minutes a day. What the intensity is, it says moderate, so 5 to 6 is just on a scale of 1 to 10. So moderate. Basically, I like to, whenever I was doing my personal training and talking with my clients, is use a talk test. So light exercise is basically what I'm doing now. I can talk full wind, multiple sentences. I'm not gasping for breath. That's pretty light. My heart rate's not coming up. More of a moderate exercise is going, okay, I'm breathing a little bit heavier. I can give out a sentence, maybe two, before I have to take a breath in. Intense or vigorous exercise is something where if you're trying to get me to talk full sentence, I might look at you cross-eyed because I can only spit out a few word responses without having to breathe. So I'll be like, this is not happening. So that's our aerobic. So basically, if you're walking around, just kind of doing your normal day-to-day groceries, it could be a light exercise. It doesn't have to be for 30 to 60 minutes at a time. You can break it up to whatever time period best suits you, whether it be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the full 60 minutes if you want. As little as 5 minutes at a time has been shown to become effective in adults through the ACSM's publications. With resistance training, all three of you ladies have been participating in our Movement Mondays. I know that when you're doing the exercises with me, we're doing more of resistance training. It doesn't always have to be with weights. It could just be the movements itself, but definitely adding the weights helps build your muscles. General guidelines is at minimum 2 days of resistance training a week just to help maintain your muscle mass and strength. Same thing for the intensity, enough to get you huffing and puffing, but nothing that's too strenuous or not too light, because then you could be doing that all day. I know I follow this with my exercise routine is about 8 to 10 exercises per exercise session. I do them in a nice circuit, so then it keeps our aerobic activity as well. But 8 to 10 exercises, kind of upper and lower body, just to kind of get a full body workout. And typically I follow 3 repetitions, really to making sure that our muscles are nice and fatigued towards the end of our session. Another activity guideline is flexibility. So basically stretching, making sure that you can get the full range of motion, or at least as best as you can, so you're not being stiff. Roughly about a couple days a week, so really kind of right after those resistance days are really nice. Your intensity should always be kind of a light tension, something where you're feeling a little bit of a stretch, nothing discomforting, but kind of enough to where you're saying, okay, something's working, something's stretching, I can feel my muscles activating. Generally, you can hold it upwards of 30 to 60 seconds. I know I count to about 10 to 15 seconds, kind of depending. And I do typically try to do them twice. So it just kind of helps engage the stretch a little bit more. Regardless of whether it's aerobic, resistance, or flexibility training, what you're doing doesn't matter as long as it doesn't cause physical pain. Because if you're starting to do physical pain, or you just really don't enjoy that type of exercise, you don't have to do it. And also, if it's causing pain, something else is going wrong. So just general COVID safety lines. So we already know what the CDC is recommending. What I'm recommending, and I can assume most of our care coordinators are recommending the same thing, make sure you're following up with the CDC and the Ohio Department of Health guidelines. Just making sure that, one, we're keeping not only ourselves safe, but family and friends and even the general public. Continue to wear your mask when you are in any public space, whether it be the grocery store, walking out in a park, or even kind of going to a restaurant but maybe not sitting down. I looked at the Lakewood county, or not county, website, and they're saying roughly about right now, or as of the 1st of April, roughly 35% of all Ohio residents have been vaccinated, or at least have one shot of their vaccination. So we're still not quite at our herd mentality for the state of Ohio. So we really want to make sure that we're continuing to wear a mask, even though that, not today, but some of the days have been nice and we're not as inclined to wear a mask when we're outside, even if we're just walking around the block, because it starts to get a little bit warmer. Try to moderate your maskless interactions. So whenever you are, regardless of everyone's being fully vaccinated, at least at the moment, still try to moderate it. Wear your mask as appropriate or as you feel comfortable. Continue your proper hand hygiene, because that was very much stressed at the beginning of last year. It's very much important. So just making sure that we're continuing that, even though the virus, we feel a little bit safer being vaccinated, it's still out there regardless, and we have different strains. Just general exercise safety. Make sure you're watching out for uneven surfaces. I forgot to put this in there. If you have pets around the home, making sure that your furry friends are not underneath your feet as you're walking around. I know all three of mine are very big culprits of either being around my knees, underneath my feet, or even as I'm getting up, or washing my dishes, they're right behind me. So I always have to look around before I even step out. So that kind of follows me, is be aware of your surroundings. I know quite a few of our members love to garden, kind of making sure that your outdoors is beautiful, maintained, whether it be pulling weeds, mowing your lawn, or anything else of that nature. Be aware of your surroundings, especially because just depending on your landscaping, you might have stones or something to create a barrier as you're getting up. You might trip over something and fall. As it does get warmer, watch out for dehydration or heat exhaustion. We may not always notice it, but if your mouth starts to get dry, even a little bit, that's your body trying to tell you, hey, we're getting a little bit dehydrated. We need some more water in our system. Generally, as you're starting to exercise or do more vigorous activities, heat exhaustion can really play into effect. It could be just temperature, could be activity, and it could also be your clothing that you're wearing. So if you're wearing a long sleeve shirt, a sweatshirt on top of a parka while it's 90 degrees outside, you're asking for some heat strokes or heat exhaustions to happen. So make sure that as the temperature changes to warmer surroundings, that you're changing how much you're layering. So make sure that if you're feeling comfortable, either kind of that 3/4 sleeve or even a 1/4 sleeve or sleeveless shirts as appropriate, pants or shorts as you feel comfortable as well. Also, make sure that you're wearing proper shoes. That if you have shoelaces, make sure that they are tied and they're not hanging down where you can accidentally step on them and untie your shoelace. I know I accidentally did this yesterday. Luckily, I caught myself before I took a full step, but still, either way, make sure that those shoelaces are really tied. If you're wearing sandals, make sure that they're secure to your foot as best as you can and not hanging and flapping every which direction. Also, be mindful of your own exercise tolerance. So even though in the last couple of slides, I said, okay, these are kind of our parameters. But if you're going, okay, you know what, that's a little bit too much for me either way, make sure that you're aware, because if you're exhausting yourself too much, that could always be a little bit more catastrophic than we want to think, just because it's your body saying, okay, this is a little bit too much for me. It could always increase, but it can also decrease. So just be mindful as to what your body's telling you. If you can't walk for 15 minutes at a time, but 10's great, go ahead and make sure you find some benches that you can sit down to continue if needed. Also with Kendal at Home, we do have our wonderful great call devices or emergency alerts. Some of our members prefer cell phones instead. But making sure that when you are outside or doing exercises, that you have something readily available, that if for any reason you do need to call for help, you can go ahead and call 911 or press the button to get an operator on the phone. Just making sure if it's anything medical that is of concerning nature to you, please notify or seek out medical attention before calling Kendal at Home. We are a non-medical company, so we will always recommend you either seek attention from the ER or your primary care physician if there is something medical going on. So also another part of this wonderful presentation is just balance in general. So looking at a health and aging website, they put on balance is commonly used to describe the stability and steadiness when a person is standing or sitting. Good balance means someone can control or maintain their body's position comfortably while performing normal activities such as standing, walking, climbing stairs, etc., etc. As we age, our balance does start to get impaired, same thing as if our exercise tolerance starts to decrease. What I know that I focus on with my members is making sure, and I know quite a bit of our other care coordinators do this as well, is making sure that you're reporting if you have any falls or any impaired balance, because any new changes could have some health impacts. So we always want to make sure that you're well taken care of and that not only we're notified, but your primary care physician, so we can help keep you independent and safe as long as possible. But also with balance, not only is it a physical thing that we want to do, is making sure that we're balancing our day-to-day activities or that work-life balance. So making sure the activities we're participating are not overwhelming us. I know with Zoom, it kind of took control of our lives a little bit, and everyone started doing Zoom meetings upon Zoom meetings, and some people even got burnt out a little bit. Same thing with our exercises, making sure that we're having a healthy balance, that when we are exercising, we're doing it at a point where we actually enjoy doing it. We want to do it. We're not incredibly fatigued afterwards, that we don't have to take a 2 or 3 hour nap after we exercise each time. We want to make sure that we can do our activities, anything we want, and we can balance and kind of make sure that everything we want to do in that day is possible. We're not going, okay, I can't do it today, whether it be scheduling, say we have 15 things we want to accomplish. Maybe say, okay, why don't we shoot for about half of that, make sure it's actually viable for us all to do, and then kind of go from there. See if we can add on anything, but making sure we're not overworking ourselves mentally, physically, or even just with our day-to-day activities. So that balance is really important. Also, it helps decrease fall risk. And of course, I love this image, so I couldn't resist. Our Kendal Classes, what we're offering with Kendal at Home to help maintain our exercise safety, our exercise tolerance, is our Movement Monday classes at Mondays at 1 o'clock. Typically, we're trying to alternate weeks. I know this month has been a little bit different, just due with our scheduling. But with resistance train and that very fun exercise class, Ballo Flex, every other week, we're trying to alternate. So one is making sure that we're exercising different muscle groups in different ways, but we're still participating in at least 30 to 60 minutes of exercise, at least one day a week. Also, what Kendal at Home is offering is a partnership with Care in Home. What we're starting to do for our members this year is offering 4 complimentary visits annually with a personal trainer. Just kind of making sure that we're helping educate with balance or falls or just general strength. And then if you wish to continue, you can continue afterwards. But kind of making sure that we're bringing that to our attention and just really making sure that we're focusing on keeping us healthy. So the real main thing is I want you guys to all stay healthy, stay safe, and also most importantly, stay tuned for our next month's Care Coordination Corner, which we will be focusing on decluttering, downsizing, and organizing with our care coordinator, Cheryl Menz, and then a guest speaker, Libby Patrick, who works with Robin Blue Downsizing. And then here are my wonderful resources, my American College of Sports Medicine Health and Aging, the CDC, and another CDC website as well. All right, so that is all my wonderful information for you ladies today. And Ryan, I see he's popped on. Any questions that you three have?
Oh, I have a question about our alert device that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a member over a year, but I just asked for the alert device this winter. And I have not tested it yet because I'm afraid I'm going to set off all sorts of bells and whistles. But my wonderful care coordinator said, test it every month to make sure. Is that, and that's safe to do? Because I hate to bother anyone when I'm saying, oh, I'm just testing.
No, so regardless of what you do, feel free to press the button. They've added in a nice safety device within pressing that button because there were a lot of accidental calls. So it won't, if you press it, it doesn't mean 911 is going to show up at your door in 5 minutes time frame. You're going to be connected to an operator regardless. But whenever you press that button, I'm assuming you have our Great Call device. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you press that button, what will happen is they'll say calling Great Call, press button to cancel. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Calling Great Call. I think that's the exact terms that they'll use. So if you let it ring through, you'll touch an operator. And what's
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get the, you'll hear the press call to cancel.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the point if I don't have any problems to press it again so it cancels?
Yeah, so if you don't want to connect with an operator, you just press it again and it should say call ended or canceled. I can't remember which one. But even if you want to test it to make sure you can hear the operator, they can hear you, most importantly, and also that the GPS is active and still working properly because you can take it around. So if you let it ring through, you'll go to an operator. They'll ask you, are you reporting an emergency? If you're not, just saying, nope, I just want to test the device, make sure I can hear you, make sure you can hear me, and make sure you can find out where the heck I'm sitting. They get within a good couple of blocks, but say if you're at home and we have it registered, that's where you're living, they'll say it looks like you're in the vicinity of your home. Is that correct? And then, but if you do need an emergency, they can say, okay, we'll patch you through 911 and they'll send someone to your home.
Okay. So you have the button down to communicate, like on a walk at work, I use a walkie-talkie, a radio, where you have to keep the button depressed, but this is the simple press it and release. And then, okay.
So you press it, you'll hear a little click, and then you let go. And that's the only pressing you have to do. The only other thing you have to remember not to do is hold down where the speaker is with your hand.
Right.
So that gray part of it, make sure that that's up and your fingers aren't holding anything to impact the microphone or your speaker. So just so you can make sure everyone can hear.
Well, I would feel terribly guilty taking up anyone's time with the, with this, oh, I'm just testing this, but I understand the reason for it and it makes sense to me. So thank you for reiterating. I'm sure Heather told me all of this, but.
So even so, if you wanted to test it, even with Heather on the phone with you, that's perfectly fine. Just to be like, okay, it might be the first time I'm testing it myself. She can do that and walk through with you. That way you're feeling secure enough. I know we've done that with our members as well, as just test it whether we're in person or over the phone. I know Katie, I've heard her talking with a couple of her members over the phone and testing it. So that is possible, and you're not wasting anyone's time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, ladies?
Chris, can I just
Marion,
interject?
I think you're muted.
Oh.
You're still muted.
Am I muted now?
Nope,
Okay.
you're good to go.
Thinking about next month, and I think every Monday you should really give us extra, so we're ready mentally and physically to declutter our houses.
All right, I can make note on mine to remember to talk
Yeah.
about our decluttering
Mm.
care coordination corner.
I just want to make one comment, because despite what it looks like outside, it is spring, and just with those first few days of good weather, unfortunately, we did have several members fall, and a couple of those members have injuries. So when we're talking about falls and safety, really thinking about, especially if you're gardening and you're standing on those pavers or railroad ties in your yard, making sure they're secure. That's where we see people stepping and maybe the paver is tilted or they're tripping over the paver because it's become uneven over the year. So really thinking about what activity you're doing and what might be a fall hazard before conducting that activity, because boy, we were 2 days in and we're like, oh gosh, it's not even summer yet. So really being mindful of your surroundings as we venture in the outdoors when the sun's shining. So thanks, Chris.
Of course, thank you for interjecting that as well. I know it was on my brain to talk about, but it still bypasses either way when you go, okay, next slide. So thank you. All right, well, without any other questions, I see Katie may be trying to join us virtually, or at least
Just a hello. Good day.
video-wise. Anything to add on our wonderful safety bits or no?
One thing I can say is, Chris, you do a perfect impression of the Great Call.
I try.
Boop, boop. I was like, oh, that was perfect. Yes. And Barbara, test it. All of a sudden, there's times that these devices, like that you can't hear them, they can't hear you. It's okay. They like to get the calls of just being tested. That's all.
Right.
So no worries. I promise. It's nice to meet you because I've never seen your face. So hello, I'm Katie. I know the other two ladies on the thing too, a little bit better than you. Hi, friends.
Well, I exercise money every Monday with Fallow Flex and resistance training. So join the class.
Yeah, Katie.
I would, but I
Join the
have a
class.
couple other. I know. What are you, Slackerson?
You're talking about moving all the time, and heck, I see you even marching in place or pedaling on your bike during our
I have
calls.
a bike under my desk at work that I can ride my bike to get my exercise in. And today I heard you talking, but I was on another call. I went out and shook my lilac bushes because they were so sad this morning by being beat down by the evil snow that fell from the ground or from the sky. So yeah, and I shook my red maple too. So they were touching the ground this morning, the branches. So, hey, I'm watching it. The sun was out and the sky was blue just a little bit ago. So it's a refreshing feeling to have that sun shining back. So this is it, Mother Nature. You're done for the year.
All right, ladies. Well, that's all I have for you on this wonderful Wednesday. Just keep it tuned for our movement classes and webinars.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.